Yo, what's going on, Dragon Ballers? Welcome back to another deck profile. Today I'm here with Chase, who got top 8 at the TAC online tournament with Android 13. Man, when I saw this dude, I was taken back. Like, I used to actually mess around with this leader back in set 3 when it came out. But I mean, I haven't looked at it in a very, very long time. There was a little bit of a time period there where people were messing around with like a turn 2 rip your opponent's hand to 0 type of thing. So Chase, firstly, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Glad to hear it. So yeah, this thing, people were messing with it. There was like a turn 2 rip your hand to 0. When did you like get on the Android 13 train?
So I kind of was on the train, when set 3 came by, but I just felt like hand destruction just wasn't relevant yet. It just wasn't in the meta. So it was hard for me to come back to him until about probably set 9 when we started to get a little bit more support, some new Android 14 and 15s that really just made me want to just focus on this leader.
Yeah, there's been a few sprouts here and there, a few sprinkles of Android 13, 14, 15 support, and I think the yellow one we got in one of the more recent sets definitely is very, very good. So we'll get into that as we get into the main deck. I want to give this guy's auto on the backside a quick read because it always confuses me when I don't read it for a long time. So when your opponent's Son Goku or battle card with energy cost 6 or less is placed in the drop area from any area by one of your skills, this card gains crit. So was the Son Goku tag ever relevant? I don't really think there's too many Goku battle cards in the meta. Maybe like Invoker. Was that ever relevant?
Not really. It's more of just the 6 or less battle card.
Right.
A lot of people are focused on whether or not I'm going to drop that from their hand, but they don't realize it says from any area. So critical was something that I really focused on, with critical being a skill. So critical also started to trigger this leader, and that's kind of what caused me to focus on this deck.
Right, yeah, critical, hand control, board destruction, all triggers that, so it's definitely very easy to get going there, especially battle card 6 or less. I mean, that's really easy to trigger. So this is like the main draw power / awakening engine of the deck. And yeah, so Android 14 Stoic Fist, which is actually your only yellow card. The builds I've seen in the past where they have like a turn 2 hand rip, those are, I believe, like green yellow builds. This is more of just like a mono green with like a few splashes here and there. Let me ask you real quick, did this deck have that potential to do the 0 hand on turn 2, or you need the yellow for that more?
This deck definitely has the turn 2 0 cards in hand, even just with the 4 yellow in the deck. And I feel like the green yellow is a little bit slower. I just felt like, especially with a lot of cards that we have that has a lot of requirements for green energy, that caused me to kind of focus more on the mono green side and just leave this as my only yellow card in the deck.
Gotcha. And that makes a lot of sense because, with green yellow, you have to charge a tapped energy turn 1. So, I mean, I think that's really one of the reasons why multicolor is not seeing a lot of play right now, is because it is basically a turn slower than everything else. So that makes a lot of sense for sure. So Stoic Fist, one of the most OP cards in the deck, and then Android Troop 14 and 15, another great card in the deck because it's just basically free cycle. And then the Android 15 just saying hi, is that literally just there for another name?
Yeah, so that's just there for having another 15. Again, it's a green card. I know a lot of people say that the yellow 15 that came out also in set 9 with the 14 not only helps you self-awaken, drawing 2 cards from your life, but again, it's just a lot of this green requirement in the cards that I play just caused me to prefer to keep to that green. And if I never really needed him and I really wasn't going to play him for 3, it was more of just an energy charge.
Right, and that makes a lot of sense too, because you're not playing an untapped 2 leader, right? Your leader draws 2 when you awaken, so you definitely don't want to play too many 10k combos in the deck. And I assume that's maybe another reason why you don't play Successor. But again, we're not really playing a green yellow build. But I kind of noticed in the deck, which I guess we'll get to as we go along, but I noticed in the deck you're not really playing like a boss monster per se. Like, you're not playing like the Android 13 Successor or anything like that. You do play some big guys, but anyways, so this deck, obviously it functions well enough without like that Successor boss monster.
Yeah, I would say so. Really the point of this deck is to get your opponent's cards down to basically 0 cards in hand turn 2 and pressure with just so much crit that by the time that they're able to, they're left with the decision of whether they, want to charge or keep cards in their hand, and just you're basically limiting their gameplay to a point where they have a difficult time playing the game and you just have full control.
Awesome. That answer is absolutely perfect, because I think in my brain I was trying to ask you, like, okay, what's the main thing of this deck, and you pretty much answered that for me. So perfect. All right, we'll keep going. So we have the 3 Dark Broly Unisons, 4 Demigraws, and 4 Charismatic Villains. So you're going with this Unison lineup. Demigra, it's interesting. It's actually, I think, found more so in like aggressive strategies. Dark Broly makes a lot of sense for me in a hand control build. So how did you come to this Unison split?
So I'm kind of using Demigra as, kind of a self-awakening just in case for, whatever reason by turn 2 I wasn't able to find my 14-15 self-awakener. I would use his permanent just to grab my life and be able to use him to get me to 6. And then whether I had the 2 android troops that I could just place in the drop area to cycle, he was just kind of there for a self-awakening early Unison for Frieza as well. And I just feel like Demigra is kind of one of the better green Unisons that we have right now.
Gotcha. And then Broly Overwhelming Evil, was he like, do you always want this guy in the mid game and then he kind of starts to snowball you the game from there, or what's like the main role of the Dark Broly?
Yeah, so like you said, this deck doesn't really have that boss monster, but I felt like this kind of played a role as that boss monster, where later on in the game I had already got their hand down to little to none and put on so much critical pressure that I got them down to probably about 2 life, and he was just kind of that finisher that I used as a double strike. And if I did face an opponent that was playing a wider board, he was definitely a way to have that kind of board control and still deal with their hand at the same time.
Very, very cool. Yeah, no, this deck is looking very, very cool as we go through it. Very unique for sure. So, all right, here we have a few techie types of cards. So 2 newfound power. I would say as far as like turn 1 plays, you don't have like a ton of turn 1 plays. This would be definitely one of them. Was 2 okay? Did you only want it in like certain scenarios? I know you're big on crit. So did you ever want more than 2 of this?
Yeah, 2 was kind of fine. It was really something I kind of just threw in last minute. I originally had double strike Champas in there, just to apply more pressure. But again, I did need that green energy, and the 10k combo was a little difficult to deal with. So definitely having a 1-drop that was a 15 critical to not only trigger my leader, give critical pressure, and also another option for self-awakening if I wasn't able to do it and my opponent was leaving me at 5 life or 7 life, and it was just an alternative that I threw in there.
Gotcha. And then Android 20 makes a lot of sense because he can basically search out any of the androids you need to get awakened, so that definitely makes a lot of sense. And then Zarbon Cosmic Elite, I mean, we're seeing most green decks splash this card, so definitely makes a lot of sense if you have your hands on it and you're playing green to definitely just play it, because it just eats up an attack, and then your opponent discards a card for the most part. So 4 Rebrand, 2 Dark Temptation Toa, and 4 Son Goku Power of Legend. So Rebrand, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. You're playing a green hand control deck. Would you say this card did a very large majority of that hand control? Like, was this card absolutely vital to your game plan?
I would say that it definitely was a huge contender and definitely MVP of the deck. However, I know it is kind of expensive and hard for people to get. So I wouldn't say it's definitely a main contender in the deck. If you don't have it, the 14 effect, it's not just once per turn. So I would end up getting my opponent, to -2 cards for little to nothing just with the 14-15 combo. So it definitely helps a lot when you just pay 2 and your opponent has to discard 2. So definitely something that I felt was necessary, especially having 4, you might as well play 4. I know a lot of people kind of keep that at the 3-4 range. So
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. It's actually a really nice thing that this card's getting reprinted in a few months. I think once Rebrand's reprinted, I think this whole list will be relatively budget. So that's actually a pretty good thing for people to look forward to going forward. And then Dark Temptation Toa, Sun Goku Power of Legend. I usually go with like actually a 3-3 split. I know you're playing a 2-4 split. My only thing is that Sun Goku Power of Legend has unique, so you can only play one of them to the field. Also, that 0 combo power is kind of a detriment. But anyways, was 2-4 okay? Would you maybe consider switching it to 3-3, or 2-4 is fine?
So I originally had it actually at 3-3, and I felt like there was a lot of the times where I didn't really set up my enough in my drop for the Overrealm, and I was kind of using a little bit of my drop more, especially with the Ribrians and the Zarbons. So overwhelming was kind of a drawback on that, but I felt like having 4 of the Goku was definitely something that was necessary. Just having a free critical on board every time I made them discard, it was more of a threat that people saw, so they kind of focused more on him rather than my leader, which was kind of nice because I just felt like even if they got rid of it, I had another one in hand for sure to just bring on next turn, as well as using his activate main if there was ever a time that I needed to deal with one of my opponent's battle cards 4 or less. I would just warp both of our cards and just bring out another Goku the next turn.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. I mean, I guess in a deck where you can technically pitch a card out of your opponent's hand every single turn, and he has the activate main to get rid of himself, I guess you can actually maybe just play Goku turn after turn after turn. So I guess it actually makes a lot more sense in this deck to play for sure. And then here is pretty much the last of the deck. We have 4 Dormant, makes a lot of sense. 2 Create Android, 2 Cells, Earthstrike Kamehameha, and then 4 Vegeta the Lone Prince. So Vegeta makes a lot of sense. It's extra hand control. Dormant makes a lot of sense as well because it's a green deck. You should play it. 2 Create Android. How did this card work out for you?
So I would say this is probably a card that I had so much trouble with just because I feel like this deck, as much small support as we're getting for 14 and 15, I feel like we just still need a better searcher. And I know they have the 1-drop Dr. Giro that searches top 3 for an Android, but in this deck I wasn't running too many Androids, so I felt like it was whiffing quite a lot. So I felt like at least with Create Android, I had a 1-drop that drawed me to cycle my deck, as well as setting up my drop area with my Ribrians and my Zarbons. So it definitely helped me a lot just trying to get those pieces, especially turn 1 if I really needed to. But if for whatever reason, if Bandai's listening and they want to throw in a 1-drop kind of like the Gokul for the Gotenks deck, but able to search a 14 and 15, that would just be fantastic.
Oh man, I think that would actually be really, really strong if they did that. Having that turn 1 consistency to get Awakened and start pitching cards at your opponent's hand, that might be a little too much. But maybe, who knows? Maybe they're listening. All right, and then the Earth Shrine Kamehameha. So this card is always interesting when it comes to a green deck because this card saw a lot of play in blue-green Piccolo format, but it doesn't see that much play in mono-green format. And I think that's because in blue-green, you have the ability to manipulate your energy, whereas in mono-green, you really don't. So how did this card perform for you with those things kind of considered?
Definitely, just as you said, with mono green, it's very difficult to decide exactly how you're going to spend your energy, and especially with Ribrian, using up 2 of your energy, and with the one drop 15k, it was a lot of difficult. Most of the time, I kind of find myself just kind of charging it, or if I ever really needed it, just for the leader trigger, it just kind of did that because the leader will trigger even mid combo, so that was something that I kind of used it for. But otherwise, if in a best of 3 format, if I felt like it wasn't relevant, it was something that I probably would side out.
Gotcha. Yeah, and this was a best 1 format, so that's something that we want everyone to kind of keep in mind. So that's pretty much the whole deck there. Any major or minor changes you would make to it?
Not at the moment. Again, I think the only issue with this deck is just finding a better way to search out your pieces. But, I felt like every game that I played, I always was able to get my 14-15 combo to Awaken at least by turn 2. So other than that, it was just, finding a better searcher is probably the only problem.
Gotcha. Very cool. Any shout outs you want to throw out there?
Yeah, I was just gonna shout out 2 of my buddies that kind of got me into this game, and they kind of supported me through this and they've kind of supported my decision on doing hand control. I know a lot of people aren't too fond of it, but definitely my buddy Oscar and Kevin, they're a huge support for me. So
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for taking the time, and we'll see you next time.
all right, thanks, man.